Yo, what's happening, guys? Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to my channel again. Another week in the forex market, and back on last week's forecast video. I know a lot of things went our way. It was quite beneficial for a lot of you that reached out to me, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the support. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and do this as regular as possible. So we're gonna jump in today. So it's Sunday today. 7th of June. We're going to jump in and see what the markets or what kind of predictions we can make for next week. We're looking at obviously the 7 majors, gold, and obviously the DXY as well. Before we get in, just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update as to what I'm doing. So I am looking to create, or at least it's already up in the process, in terms of providing online courses in like 3 different formats: beginner, intermediate, and expert. I want to try and make it as affordable as possible and literally tailor it as close, if not literally mirroring the same techniques that I use to trade on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. It's in the process, all the merchandise, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll be publishing a lot of details around that very, very soon. But in the meantime, as of today, let's get straight into the analysis.
Okay, so let's start off with the DXY. Okay, so our predictions last week, which is here, as you can see, in the 1st of June, we predicted the DXY to come down, or at least be bearish because obviously of all the news around economies, reopening and stuff like that. So I don't want to spend too much time explaining all of that because I know I did a huge video last week. So I'm going to try and be as quick as possible in regards to my analysis. Okay, so we saw the DXY bounce off this area here. It comes on back on the daily chart. We can see a rejection around this level area here, and that's obviously what we're expecting on the 4-hour time frame. Now it's had that rejection. However, I continue to believe the fact that the DXY and the dollar index is going to fall even more, and we are expecting this break because I said last week, if the market breaks below this 97.17 level, we can see the price of the DXY, or at least the movement of the DXY, to come all the way down to this 94.6 level. There aren't many areas of support here that's going to have a bounce for the DXY. It's in a bearish trend. It's broken this triangle, this wedge here that we can see. So that's what we are expecting for the DXY to come all the way down to this 94.6 level. However, the other way that this can potentially go is obviously if it breaks this 97.2 level, right, we can expect a possible movement or retracement to come to around this 97.93 level, right? There's a lot of key data coming out next week, and we can wait to see what Powell does in regards to, from the perspective of the Fed, okay? So that's the movement that we were expecting from the DXY. Mainly, I still believe the fact that it's in a bearish movement because obviously a lot of the economies reopening. 15th of June is a key one for United Kingdom as well. So yeah, let's have a little look and see what happens with regards to that over next week. Moving on to AUDUSD. Okay, so a lot of these pairs, right, have benefited from the crash of the dollar, or at least the bearish movement, correction, whatever you want to call it, of the dollar. And last week we predicted, to be fair, we predicted a bounce off this level, but it actually didn't even bounce. It literally just shot straight up. We had, continuous movement there. Like I said, midweek, there's always a little bit of correction midweek. That's what we usually say. So usually on Wednesday, right, we saw this correction come in, right? However, it just geared up for a further movement upwards, and that's literally what I said last week as well. We'll see a bit of correction come in on Wednesday. But it will just feel a better price for buyers to get into the market for that long. Now we've got this area here. This is a very key significant line, 0.705, a psychological level of some sort. And what we can expect is a small correction. So what I would like to do here is, or what I would like to see is, we can see a key level here, potentially this area here. So we can see the potential movement, right, of this pair to go up to this level here, back down here for potential buy and breakthrough again. This is what we are expecting. Now, if I was going to the daily chart, right, we can see the fact that this is a very, very key level. We will see some resistance here, right, purely because of the fact that it's not broken this level since December, right? So it would be a yearly high to break above that, and then obviously we can see the market move towards these other peaks here about almost 12 months ago. Okay, so that's what we can expect from the Australian dollar. Now, I don't believe the fact that the Australian dollar is gonna start moving in a bearish movement. It's not going to have a bearish trend. I'm not convinced that it will. Reason being is it's on the upwards with a lot of the economies coming up, and the way the DXY is moving, you know, we can still see some room for this to create a new yearly high. Okay, if it does drop, right, it's probably going to drop to this level here, right? Potentially it can come up to here. So it can come up to here, but it's going to do. It's just going to fuel and get it ready and create obviously a lower high and fuel it, getting it ready for a massive surge upwards, breaking above this level here. Moving on to Euro USD. So I left this arrow here just because of the fact that we predicted this movement, or this upwards movement. Yes, we expected the market to come here. Unfortunately, it did not. But it still had this massive upwards movement in relation to obviously the movement of the DXY and how bearish that was and that correction that's coming in. Now the Euro saw this massive rise, and then obviously on Friday, due to the positive NFP results in favor of the DXY, we saw this drop that came through. Now it did come through from, I would say to you, like a very weak area of resistance, because it's not a very clear-cut line of where you would potentially bounce. So it would be difficult to potentially predict this little sell-off. However, for those of you that use candlestick formations, you would have seen this inverted hammer, and you would have got a decent amount of pips. Okay, a good 48 pips. However, what can we expect for the upcoming week? Now, I still believe the fact that this is going to rise upwards further towards this key 1.15 level, right? That is the expected movement that I'm for the Euro USD. If it does not, what we can do and what we can expect is a potential retest of this area here. So what we can expect is the market to come here and then to go upwards towards the 1.15 level. If it does break this area, then we can expect a further retracement towards this area here, all depending on two key things. One, what happens to the DXY? What does the Fed do, right? Secondly, any sort of news around Brexit. Now, there's a lot of talks going on around this trade deal. Anything that favors the euro will obviously benefit the euro. Anything that doesn't favor the euro, you know, it's going to tank. It's going to start tanking, regardless obviously what's happening in the DXY. So let's move on to GBPUSD. So the pound, the cable. So had some huge traction last week. Some very key movements. You know, I had a lot of trades that, for those of you that were watching my trading view on an intraday basis. So it broke through this key level. And I said last week that this was going to move upwards, right? And it was going to test this area here, the 1.26 level. What was key? That was the fact that it broke this 1.26 level. However, it retraced from this area here that we can see, this 1.27. Now, with regards to 15th of June and the 4th of July, which are key dates for non-essential businesses to now reopen, a lot of high street retailers are reopening next week. So what we can expect here, all right, is only one way. And this is what I'm predicting. 1.32. That is coming. I'm telling you, in 2 weeks, that is what we're expecting. That is the price that it's going to reach. Now, best buying positions, where you really want to buy from, is probably some sort of retracement to this level here, and then we can expect the buy to come from here, right? Or what I would do is I would wait for a specific candlestick formation to open and close above this 1.27235 level, right? And then obviously look to buy from there. Okay, so you've got 3 buying positions really, right? All heading towards that 1.32 level. The only reason potentially why this would the GBPUSD would tank, right, is only if we get some sort of results suggesting the fact that obviously there's a second wave to come out for the coronavirus. But you know, as we're all aware, it will probably take about 2 weeks to figure out whether there is some sort of second wave or not. You know, to see true reflections of any reopening of existing businesses. Another reason why GBPUSD may tank is any sort of reports coming out around obviously the trade deal for Brexit. So those two key things, any news surrounding that in favour or against the pound would obviously help it move. Moving on to NZDUSD. So the New Zealand dollar, like I said last week, and for some of you that are probably already aware, it moves quite similar with the Australian dollar. And what can we expect here? Now it's reached a very critical line. We can see here it is a almost it's had its correction from this massive tank that it had when coronavirus first had its outbreak and a lot of these lockdowns came in. But New Zealand has obviously generally traded very well and have reacted and probably had one of the best strategies in tackling coronavirus worldwide anyway. So my prediction for this is it will have, I believe there will be some sort of correction, as we can already see here. So if I was to zoom in, right, we can see some candlestick formations. We can see a doji, with two dojis, and this potential last one reforming. Right. However, what I believe is going to happen is I believe the fact that if we are going to see some sort of correction, right, we're going to see this correction down towards this level, right. Now, what's the key here is this will set up a new buying opportunity. It will create a lower high, a higher low, and give it room or the ability to come out of these overbought conditions, and then obviously refuel it and get ready for that charge toward that 0.67 level, and further get to some other key zones which I've obviously had here existing from about a year or 2 years ago. So that's what I believe will be a very, very key movement, and what we can expect for the market to happen. Now, if it doesn't have this retracement, it's only going one way. Literally straight back up, and that's what we're expecting from the market. Once again, another week bearish movement of the DXY will help this fuel this continuing surge of a lot of the majors. Moving on to USDCHF, this was a beauty from last week, an absolute beauty. I advised and I said the fact that there's going to be a bounce, right? It's broken out of this wedge that we had primarily beforehand, right? It's trading below it. There was no false breakout. It's not come back into play. It came back to test this area three times throughout the week, and they just set up beautiful sell positions, right? And I believe that is what's going to happen. This pair, now, the battle of two safe haven currencies is literally going to go sideways, but bearish sideways, if that's what you want to call it. I believe the fact that it is literally just going to come straight back down towards this area here, right? And if it breaks the 0.952 level, right, it's going to be further downwards to this level here, right? And that is the expectation that I believe that's going to happen, right? We saw this break here, and what that did was just create the ability for it to reach this existing 0.95 level, which is obviously this key area here. And if that breaks, which we'll see a little bit of obviously consolidation around this area before it continues to break. I don't believe that it will have a little clean break. It will have there will be some sort of ability to get, because it will get into, I believe, some oversold conditions, and then therefore create a further movement downwards. Moving on to USDCAD. Look at this. I kept this in because it moved beautifully in comparison to the expectations that we had last week, right? My analysis that I did last week was advising the fact that we're going to see movement in the aviation industry. We're going to see a little bit more demand. We saw this week the likes of EasyJet and Ryanair, promoted a lot of flights for European trips in October, right? That just gave a little bit more confidence to the aviation industry, of the fact that we're going to start seeing people going on holiday. That demand for oil is going to come back, and with that demand for oil, which is obviously Canadian dollar is very much so affected by that, we are going to see the Canadian dollar get some positive momentum. And that's exactly what we saw last week. We barely saw any sort of bullish movement from the USD. Yes, there was, like I said, always midweek Wednesday is where you'll see a little bit of retracement from Monday, Tuesday's movement. And then obviously if you don't see that correction come through Thursday, Friday, it's going to be most likely just the other way, downwards, going towards the 1.34 level. Okay, so that's exactly what we saw. Now, what do I believe is going to happen now? Now, we're in oversold conditions. The key thing what I wanted to hear is, remember last week, if you watched my video, I said to you, this gap is going to get covered. And that is what I expected. Now, what can we expect? What's key going to be here is I definitely believe the fact that we are going to have... we are going to see some sort of retracement, 100%. because we've had such a massive bearish movement for the last 2 weeks, I believe the fact that we're going to see some retracement upwards to maybe around this level here. This is key. This is going to create more opportunities for us set, right? Because I now believe from here, what's going to happen is we're going to now see a potential movement downwards towards this area. Now, I'm going to have to go onto the daily chart to see where we can potentially see some sort of movement towards. Now, I believe the fact that this area here is going to be the next area of test. So if we go back to the 4-hour chart, we can see the fact that, I'll have to just alter this a little bit. This is what we are going to see to this level here. That's where the sell is going to come into, okay? And that's what I'm expecting from USDCAD. Moving on to USDJPY. So USDJPY moves a little bit different to obviously all other pairs. Like I said last week, we're going to see this area getting retested around the 109.100 level. Beautiful, beautiful trade. Imagine if you had a long from Monday, you would have bagged some crazy pips, man, on USDJPY. Now that it's broken this level, it's retested of a very interesting level, which a lot of people may not see, but this area here, it's retested that very nicely. Now, what can we expect? I continue to believe the fact that this, as you can see, obviously for a lot of the other pairs, USD was bearish and it had that bearish movement. How USDJPY moves a little bit differently because of the Japanese yen, and I believe what we can see is the fact that there may be potential room for this to come and test the yearly high, right? And that's this area here. Now, I believe the fact that we're going to see some retracement, right? Because of obviously economies coming in. We're going to see this movement here potentially, and then we're going to see a rise towards this area. Now, I don't believe the fact that it's going to come back and test this area, but if it does, right, that is going to move abnormally different to what the DXY is going to be expected to be moved towards. So we can expect potentially a movement towards this area here, and then we can expect the buy going upwards towards this area here. Okay, so that's what we can potentially expect and see what's going to happen. Okay, now moving on to gold. Let's see what happens with gold. Okay, so gold was a key movement. I said last week this bearish movement was incoming. It didn't happen the first 2 days, but Wednesday came in and we saw that massive tank of the dollar, primarily because obviously a lot of investors were moving away from commodities and moving towards obviously economies, with a lot of businesses reopening and lockdowns easing. So, which is quite surprising, even though the fact that we've got all these massive protests going around the world with regards to obviously such a huge important factor with regards to in the case of obviously social injustice and etc. etc. So I'm surprised to see the fact that the gold reacted this way. I thought there might have been some sort of safe haven movement for investors with a lot of looting and rioting, but it didn't have that impact. If anything, it made gold tank even more potentially, or at least it didn't react to those political or fundamental factors, I would say. So what can we expect here? So I believe gold, now that it's broken that 1690 level, which was a very, very key level I mentioned last week, right? I believe the fact that it is now going to trade downwards. There are going to be certain areas of resistance where it will get tested, and I'll just highlight these. The first one is going to be this one here, right? The second one is going to be this one here, right? And the third area that we expect to reach is obviously this bottom level here between 1641 and 1632. So I believe 1638 is obviously a very key level. So that's what I'm expecting for the movement of gold to happen. So that is it, literally, and that's the movement that we are expecting and forecast for the following week for obviously the 7 majors, including gold and gold and the DXY. Let's see what happens, and I'll obviously wish the best for everyone in regards to their trading over next week. Keep a lookout on my trading view for my intraday trades, which are primarily on obviously a smaller time frame. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching today.